Okay, good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl, your host for broadcasting to you live from beautiful Southwest Georgia. I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. It seems like I do that every time we get on here live. My brain kind of does this little baffly bumble jumble thing. But anyway, we are studying the book What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter, and we are on chapter 4 this week. But before we get going, I want to have everybody have a chance to introduce themselves and just let us know where you're hanging out from. And for those of you who are hanging out with us and would like to join in on the conversation, go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That will bring you to our main event page where you can participate in the conversation. If you happen to be seeing this post on my profile or on Danielle's or Christina's or Catherine's or Dan's or anybody else's profile, you might leave a comment and we may not see it. So go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com and jump on with us live there. So you can add into the conversation. Just let us know you're hanging out with us. So who wants to introduce themselves first?
Good morning, everybody. This is Danielle DeLyons out in Anaheim, California. Excited to be back in touch with everybody. Had some technical issues over the last couple of weeks and got those resolved. So excited that we're in this book. This book has been very influential with me, and so it's a pleasure to be able to be back with all of my good friends here and share with you today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Smith from Boise, Idaho, and just looking forward to the discussion today.
Good morning, everyone. This is Catherine Clement in gorgeous Boulder, Colorado, and so glad to have you back, Danielle.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Irvin here in Northeast Tennessee, and I'm glad to be here, Danielle. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it because you're so stoked about this book.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, guys. I guess we lost Dan. He fell off the hangout there. I'm sure Jason will jump on too anytime, and Dan will get back with us as soon as he gets his internet connection figured out. I just want to say welcome to everybody who's hanging out with us this morning. Welcome, Marcia, BG, Donna. Hey, Donna. Sorry you can't get on with us this morning. We understand it's kind of hard to do that when you've got lots of stuff going on in your house. Let's see, who else is hanging out with us this morning? Robert, welcome. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. Karen, hey, how's it going? I'm not sure if Sandy will make it on or not, but she's got some things going on with her as well. Okay, looks like that's everybody. If you, yeah, you can still continue to add comments on our page. Just at any point you feel like jumping in. Morning, Karen. Then add your thoughts to our conversation. Let me get back over here where I can see everybody. We're in chapter 4 right now. And this particular chapter talks a lot about how the brain works and the science behind the brain. And I think it's a really fascinating chapter because it just speaks specifically to the science behind what actually kind of motivates us, what gets us going, what you know, all of the processes that happen inside of us. You know, of course, we all know that our brain kind of helps our body function without us having to think about it. You know, our heart keeps beating, the blood keeps flowing, we breathe, we digest. All of those things happen in the background without us thinking about it. But whether we realize it or not is that over the years since we've been born up until now, we've been programmed with a lot of other things that are causing us to do things automatically without us thinking about it. And that's what this book is all about, because we want to learn what those things are. So if we're acting in a way that is not beneficial to us, we want to be able to reprogram ourselves so that we can act in the way that will benefit us, that will help us be more successful, that will help us get along better with other people, that will help us in every way, right? So let's just kind of jump into the conversation here. You know, I'm just going to go with some of the questions I had in the pre-mastermind discussion. What do you guys think was the biggest takeaway from this particular chapter? Who wants to jump in first?
Go ahead, Danielle. I was having a hard time unmuting.
No, actually, Dan really said a lot in the pre-mastermind, and I'd love if you'd talk about it, Dan, because I was going to piggyback on some of the comments you made. You nailed it so well. I had nothing else to add after what you had said. You got the nail right, the hammer right on the nail with your comments.
Okay. Yeah, now I got to remember what I said. You write these things in a moment of inspiration, and then it's like you read it the next day and say, well, who wrote that? No, I don't know. I mean, I've studied the brain off and on for a lot of years. I first started hearing these type of things back in the mid-'70s, and so a lot of the things that I bring forward into my mind today are things that I heard clear back then. And one of the things that I guess, I'm kind of looking at here what I did right, but one of the things that I heard clear back then is I heard a statistic on the number of songs that you'll learn in a lifetime that you never set out to learn. And, so how many jingles from commercials can you sing, or at least you can hum the tune to it. You might not know all the words. Or how many the openings of a sitcom, like Gilligan's Island. I mean, you sit and sing the entire thing from Gilligan's Island, but you never actually set out to learn that. And I talked about this, I don't know, 3 weeks ago, a month ago, something like that. Anyway, about 15 years ago, give or take, I was sick, and normally I don't sit and watch TV on the weekends, and I felt like crap. I felt like I got hit by a bus, and so I just turned on the TV because I didn't want to think, I didn't want to do nothing, and I just sat and watched TV all day Saturday, all day Sunday. And that particular weekend was when a Taco Bell commercial first came out. It was about the new product they had called the Gordita. And by the end of that night, on Sunday night, I could sing that entire song, and I can still sing it today. Like that's been like 15 years ago, give or take. And so the advertisers know if they can get a message in front of your eyes and into your ears a certain number of times within a certain time frame, they've programmed you. And it's things that you never set out to learn. I mean, how often does this happen to you? It happens to me all the time. All of a sudden, I'll catch myself humming a song, and it's like, I don't want that in my mind. Who put that there? I don't want it there. I don't like this song, But you get on this this loop. I don't know if this ever happens to you, but I'll have maybe for 2 or 3 days, I'll have one song just looping in my mind, and I can't get it out. I mean, you purposely try to get it out, and it keeps coming back and keeps coming back. And so that's just an example of the programming that somebody else has on your mind. And the first thing is to even recognize that it exists, that it's happening to you, and then how do you take control of that, and how do you manipulate what comes into your mind, what comes into your eyes, your ears. So you got ear gate, you got eye gate, that's information input, and so how do you control that? So I'll turn it over to somebody else.
I wanted to jump back in, if I may, after that, Danielle, because I wanted you to talk about that. That was really key. I started thinking, I don't know if any of the others of you did, about how many songs and jingles and things that it's like a subliminal message, and it's so effective. It's one of the most effective ways that we're influenced. I put it up there kind of with some of the influence and programming we receive from our parents. There's certain things that we learn when we go to school, and it was a lot of it's to do with music, interestingly enough. Like in kindergarten, they're teaching you certain repetitive songs, or learning the how to salute the flag, or there's just key little things that are drilled into us, and they stick with us so easily. Or, you know, and how do you reprogram that, and how does it affect how we behave? That's the bigger thing. We don't even realize how much we're affected to a behavior because of it.
That's such a great point with the songs and teaching us stuff in school. I mean, you know, ABCs. We started out with ABC song, right? You know, I was just thinking, I posted on the page, who all knows all the words to the Big Mac song for McDonald's? I can remember it all. I remember the jingle, you know. I mean, it's crazy to think about that stuff, you know. And in here it talks about how, you know, it compares the brain to a computer. It's like whatever you record into a computer, it stays there until you re-record over it, you change over it. Or, you know, if you're not a computer person, then that doesn't really click with you. Maybe, you know, a VHS tape or a DVD or whatever, you know, you program that information on there, or you record it or anything like that, and then it stays there forever until you record something new over that. And that's what we're talking about here, is how can we record something new into our brains to start helping us function in a more optimal way to benefit us in our lives. Yeah, okay, jump in, Christina. I'm done for now.
Yeah, everybody's so on point with the melodies. I mean, we all can sing the Oscar Mayer song and all these different, you know, all these different little jingles. And there have been studies where certain cultures of people actually they take children from different cultures of people, and those who perform they found that some perform better around melody and music, and so they tie all the lessons to that. So I think you are so on point with that. I'm of a mindset that you can't start a new recording until you're aware and conscious of the old recordings, because otherwise, you know, as you know, I'm reading another book and called Pay Me What I'm Worth, and really, those old recordings get roots, they're deeply rooted. So just like in a garden, if you just pluck the weed, but you don't get down in the root, it continues to come back eventually. So for me, I think in order to record something new, you've got to get an understanding of what those old, bad, negative talks are in order to rewire them. What do you think about that?
I'm sorry, my display driver crashed, so I missed what you said, Dan. And but when I came back on, you guys were talking about melodies. We moved around a lot when my kids were little, and so we always had a new phone number. Back then, we didn't have cell phones where you kept your number. You know, you had to actually remember your number back then. And the way that I taught my kids the new phone number every year or 6 months, however, when we moved, was to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I mean, they had it within, you know, moments. So the melodies definitely work. As for reprogramming, I agree. You do need to. There's some things that you need to get to the bottom of, but I also think that there's just a lot of stuff there that we may not ever really know that, you know, that's influencing us, because we don't ever get there. But we can go ahead. We can at least start paving that path, you know. And then usually, at least for me, what happened is when I took that step out, then those things started sort of surfacing, you know, challenges that I'd come across, or self-doubts coming up. Sometimes you don't know what's influencing you, but if you pay attention to the things that are frustrating you in your communications or your business, or the, you know, just the things that get under your skin a little bit, that's when you know you need to dig a little deeper, because you got something going on there. So see if you can get to the bottom of it. But don't stay down there for months, you guys. You know, I mean, it's one thing to like explore and try to overcome some of these things, but you don't want to just dwell in in the pits of despair, you know, you got to step out and above all that.
You know, that goes back to the previous chapters that we started with in the book about how much negative programming we received as a child in all areas, not just through the music, but just what our parents taught us and said to us, and how much that's affected us. We become chemically dependent on certain wiring that's in there, and it goes to what Christina and Catherine were just saying, that's understanding that we have that brain chemical dependency based on that. So the TV industry figured that out years ago. That's why they use it, and they still look at our commercials today. They have catchy little tunes. A movie wouldn't be a movie. We wouldn't be terrified if it didn't have a music bite to it to create a it heightens our heartbeat, it does things to our adrenaline, it creates emotion. So they're all interconnected. It's tones and vibrations, really, if you go down to the basis of and how our brain reacts to that. Just like a deaf person, they might not be able to hear out the way, but they can hear, you can put something next to them and they can hear the vibrations and it'll still affect them. So the words and power of that and how it programs us is big.
I think that one of the closing lines here says, because starting out as children completely dependent on others, it is important to our survival to listen to and to believe what others say. We learn to accept what others tell us, and we learn to believe it. You know, and as long as that's good stuff, that's great. You know, but you know, what if it's not stuff that that you want? You know, but we are trained, you know, from the time that we're little to believe what we're told. And it's like, well, if it's in the newspapers, it's got to be true, right? Or if it's on the news at night, it's got to be true. I mean, they wouldn't lie to us, would they? You know. And so we're trained with this training that all of our lives that no, you should just believe, you know. And it's not until you become an adult. You know, and I've gotten so much into some of Bob Proctor's teachings lately, and he has this little figure. It's a big circle with a line in the middle, and then a line coming down, and a small circle, and so the big circle is the mind, and on the top half is the conscious mind, on the bottom half is the subconscious mind. But when you're a child, you don't have that top half, so you've only got half a circle. And so everything that comes into you, your pure subconscious mind when you're a child, when you're first born. So everything that's coming into that, you just accept it because you don't have any basis whatsoever to either reject it or whatever. You're a child, you're open, you're trusting, and you're just trusting that the information that you're being given is true and that it's good stuff, you know. But what if the people that are feeding you that stuff are messed up, you know? Or you know, I mean, how many of us? I mean, I'm guilty of this when my children were little, and I didn't want to sit and take care of them because I had other things that were more important to do. I plucked them down in front of the television set, turned that on, and used the TV for my babysitter. But you know, there was a commercial, several commercials a few years ago where you know, the parents come home and there's all these gang thugs and all kinds of people, you know, and perverts and everything sitting in the living room, you know, and you know, the kind of byline or whatever you want to call it anyway is you wouldn't invite these people into your living room, so why do you have them, you know, you're piping them in through the television and allowing them to program these little minds, you know, and you know, I mean, guilty as charged, you know. You know. So anyway, I'll let somebody else talk.
That's a great point, Dan, about the using that as an example of actually having those people in your living room. And you know, what's interesting about that is that we still will allow actual people into our living room, or we, you know, when we, I don't know about you guys, but who can, you know, really give you some bad feelings, you know, say family members that are super negative, who are constantly complaining and constantly, you know, throwing out all of this unpleasant attitude about life. I know a lot of folks that are in the home business industry fight a lot of that with their families because they're trying to grow a business and all the other people are like, oh, it's a scam, and so they're constantly hearing all this feedback or all these people saying it's bad, it's a scam, it's no good, you're going to lose all your money and all these things. And so you have that to fight against. It's like you realize it's going on, but yet at the same time it's like, trying to combat that. And of course, one of the ways that we do that is surrounding ourselves by positive attitude people, because positive people can influence you as well. Does anybody else have anything you wanted to add further onto this side of the conversation? I had something else I wanted to kind of point us in a different direction, or not really a different direction.
Yeah, just real quick, from my perspective, faith is belief in things unseen. And so part of this whole pre-programming of your mind is that technically your eyes tell you one thing, and you have the choice whether you believe that or not, or you have the choice of programming. And I guess what brought this up is what you was talking about, Samantha, that your family members or your friends think, well, you're insane, you're crazy, you're an idiot, this is a scam, I can't believe you're going out scamming people and all this kind of crap, And you got a choice. You have the choice to believe those people and the things that they're saying, or you have the choice of believing your eyes, or you can reprogram faith into your heart, and it's conceiving faith. You actually conceive faith. It's like having a baby in a sense. And there is a scripture passage that says faith comes from hearing, and hearing by the word. And I've read that thousands of times. I've spoken it thousands of times. And just in the last couple of weeks, 2 words just stood out. Faith comes. Faith comes. Faith comes. Faith comes to you. And so you've got the choice of believing your eyes what you see, believing your ears what you hear, or I know the book Science of Getting Rich. There's a couple of pages in one of the chapters, and it talks about just exactly what I'm talking about here. Is that you have the choice to believe your eyes or your ears, or you can develop and conceive faith in your heart, and you can choose not to believe what your eyes tell you, not to believe what your ears tell you. Conceive faith and move forward and walk by faith and not by sight. And that in doing that, the perspective of it's a scam, well, for those people it is a scam, but not from my perspective, it's not. And so I choose to believe my perspective and not to believe their perspective, and they can take their perspective and stick it where the sun doesn't shine. So anyways, go ahead and go down your rabbit trail or some.
That's good, Dan. What was I going to say on that? Oh, just something like a whole, kind of along that same line. Says, of course, we've talked about the home business industry a little bit and how people have family members that will be negative towards them. But what about other situations? How many times have you, been told to take your head out of the clouds? Things like that. It's little comments along that line. It's like when we decided to become full-time RVers, and get rid of our our actual house. We just have our RV now, and people look at us like we're Looney Tunes. I mean, not everybody, but there's a lot of people that look at you like, they talk to you and they're like, they're just like homeless people or something, or what's wrong with them? Why don't they just get a real house, or go, if they can have a real house, they just go out and get a real job, and and it's funny to me because for me this is freedom. I love it, and but for other people they don't see it that way. They don't understand. And so anyway, you have those kind of stereotypes that you're kind of trying to fight against when you try and do something new or outside the box. Say you quit your job because you want to follow your passion or whatever. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I don't know if
she froze.
Jason?
Okay. So, hey, Jason, good to see you, buddy.
Hey.
I personally, I think that was a really good question that Samantha was talking to, really, and I still, I feel like if you understand and you know who you are, and you understand your value, and you are sure about your vision, the rest of it takes care of itself. That you don't have the tendency to succumb to that negative chatter. I just know that that rewiring, the plucking of the roots of all that bad negative conversation is literally the reason why uh, you keep repeating the negative stuff. I mean, I just know that once you rewire that and you're clear on what you have to offer and where you stand on things, all that negative chatter really doesn't even play a role other than to remind you of really what is out there in floating around. It reminds you to continue to be full inside in yourself and to be conscious of the energies that you allow around you. I that's just my thought though.
I wanted to piggyback on Samantha. I think it's cool what you do in your life. You do have freedom, and if a lot of people understood that they, it's that crab mentality. Everybody needs to stay in the bucket kind of thing, and everybody wants to constantly pull you back in, and you've learned how to get out of the box, out of the bucket, so to speak, and live differently. And you said something else that was kind of key, that there's statements also that most of us can make because by fault or default our parents have said certain things to us that are patterns too, like money doesn't grow on trees, close the door, we don't live in a barn, or what do you think I am, Rockefeller? I mean, there's just little sayings and things that it seems like they're pretty consistent across the board, and it does go to what Christina just said, and that's why I applaud anybody that gets on calls like this, or I know BJ just referenced a TED Talk. Is you're constantly feeding yourself new information so that you can void out the old programming and wiring and bring in the new wiring, and that is possible, but you do have to be definitely aware of it.
I've got another book by another author, and I don't know how they register it, but anyway, they've done psychological experiments and things, and that the average person has over 300,000 negative thoughts a day, and yeah, I mean that's an incredible number. And like I say, I don't know how in the world you'd even figure that out, but that's what this author's talking about, and in relation to when in running your home-based business, and whether it be your relation or whether it be the prospect that you're talking to, that's something that you have to actually bear in mind, is that if they're the average person, they're having this average of over 300,000 negative thoughts a day, which is, from my thinking, is almost a continuous stream of negative thinking. And so you come bebopping up there and you're a positive person now, and the person doesn't know how to handle that. It's like your brother-in-law, or whatever. I mean, doesn't everybody have a negative brother-in-law, that's going to try to rain on your parade in any way that they possibly can, and yeah, you're out there peddling your little stuff and all this, all this stuff. But from my perspective now, I've been around the block a time or two now, and there were people that I showed the Amway business to back in the mid 70s that now I've had all these years to see where they ended up. And some of them, where they ended up is not a very good place. And so there again, I mean, back then I was so vulnerable and I was so open to anything that anybody told me that I listened to a lot of this stuff, and I let it affect my attitude, and I shouldn't have. I wish that I hadn't, but I mean, all I can do is move forward from where I'm at now. But the fact is listening to a trusted family member that you think is smarter than you are, more intelligent, or or makes a couple of dollars more an hour than you, so they're financial geniuses or whatever. But when you have a lifetime to look back and see where they ended up, that maybe you wish that you hadn't listened to them to begin with.
So okay,
Okay.
have everybody give an example of maybe how the thoughts in your head or programming has caused you to take an action or act in a certain way or something along that lines. Let me just give you an example of something that just happened to me today that within the past 12 hours or whatever. I have I've been fighting some issues with migraine headaches over the past couple of years. And one thing I discovered not too long ago was that if I wear a fleece hat, like a winter hat on my head when I go to sleep at night, that it helps to keep my head warm and I won't wake up with a migraine, right? Well, I discovered this because I was waking up every morning with a migraine for a while there. And but here it is. We're down here in Georgia. It's been almost up to 100 degrees every day. And so in my head, I'm going, I don't need to wear my hat because it's 100 degrees outside, right? So I have these thoughts in my head telling me this, and so I don't wear my hat. It's kind of like this argument in my head about wearing this silly hat to keep from getting a migraine headache. And and some mornings I'm fine, but then it was like this morning I woke up had a migraine. I didn't wear my stupid hat, but it's just funny how little thoughts in your head can get in the way of making positive changes, right? So I don't know. Anybody else have an example of something similar? You have this little argument in your head of thoughts that get in your way.
I have a real simple. Oops. Go ahead, hon.
I was just thinking that this week I've been doing a lot of thinking about the thin line between giving too much and trying to control a situation too much. And to me, it's that worry about someone else not getting enough, or did I give enough of myself to help someone? And literally this week it's been understanding, hey, you give all that you can give, and you can't control what another person does to receive it, whether or not they receive it or whether they receive it and take action on it. It's really not your business, and you shouldn't be trying to control it. Once you give of yourself, that's it. Let the rest of it go. And that's been one of the self chatters that I've been kind of dealing with.
Just a quick and easy example. When I was young, I was totally the daydreamer. Like, I was in trouble every day in school for daydreaming. Actually, I was trancing out and doing all kinds of stuff that I won't even mention here. But anyway, I got the message early on. I can't remember whether I gave it to myself originally or my teachers or who, but I got the message early on that I was bad at math. And that actually stuck with me all the way. I mean, I quit school. Like, I didn't go the 9th grade at all. Like, I skipped, but I officially quit in the 10th grade on paper. But when I went to college, when I had my kids and I went back to college, that actually had a huge impact on what I studied in college. Like, I even asked them, what has less math? because I suck at math, and I've told myself that my whole life. And yet, I have to give myself credit because I was an RN for 20 years when I worked with premature babies, so babies that could fit in your hand. So you can imagine the micro doses of medications that had to be so exact, or I could actually kill a baby. And I found one algebraic formula that I could use to figure out any medication dosage. For 20 years, I used one algebraic formula. So I may not be, Mensa qualified or anything, but I safely took care of people for 20 years. I think that, a lot of these things that hold us back that come from our childhood, I think if we would just go back and revisit it with an adult mindset. So many of these things traumatize people for their entire lives because they're looking at those experiences through the eyes of a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old. They're feeling the emotions that came out of that situation from that little teeny tiny, perspective. Now we're adults. Now many of us have kids of our own, and we've made the same freaking mistakes with our kids, even though we swore we were going to. We've done a little better, but I know I've caught myself doing some stuff. I was like, oh no, I did it. We fall into these patterns. So if we can just go back to those moments, revisit that with an adult mindset, most of the trauma just drops away. There's nothing there to be upset or traumatized over when you look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, jump out. There's so many examples of the question you asked, Samantha. There are so many examples, I guess the question is always how much do you bury your soul, but I grew up in a poor family, my family was poor, but this poor, there was no money, but I'm talking about a poor that goes beyond the money. I'm talking about a poor that's mental, and you can be broke but not be poor. But I'm talking about a real poor, and the music, we talk about music. Well, my family was big on music. I've been around music all my life, and my parents listened to country music back then, and the message in the country music, because it wasn't all that far after the Depression, was always about money's scarce, money's tight, there's not enough of it to go around, it's really, really hard to get your hands on it, or the message that some rich boy drove up in his Cadillac convertible and took my girlfriend, just on and on and on, the message about there just was not enough money. And I grew up in a poor family, and our house partially burned when I was like 5, and they rebuilt it to the point where you could live in it. But honestly, up here in Idaho, it gets cold in the wintertime, it gets hot in the summertime, and our bedrooms had no insulation, and there was no blocking between the rafters, and sometimes if the wind was blowing right, I got snowed on or rained on in my bed when I was sleeping, and we had an outdoor toilet until I was in my teens. This is just the way I lived. My father died when I was 10, so we didn't have much money. We didn't have money before then. After he died, because he was the breadwinner, it was worse. So, when I was going through school, I equated that poor people are dumb. Therefore, I am dumb. And just exactly what you said, Catherine, I grew up with that mentality that my family's poor people are dumb, therefore I'm dumb, and I flunked the 2nd grade. And as far as daydreaming, my body was there, but my mind was not there. I was on another planet. I was someplace completely 100% removed from school. So I flunked the 2nd grade, and so all my life I've had this little voice in my mind: you're not as good as other people, you're not smart, you're not as intelligent as other people. And like in track, I took first place in every track. I was in high jump. I did high jump and track, and I took first place in every single one. But I always discounted it because I flunked the 2nd grade. Therefore, I was a year older. Therefore, it didn't count because I was a year older and I was competing with younger kids than me. So everything was just discounting that I didn't have what it took. I wasn't as good as other people. I wasn't as smart. I wasn't as intelligent as other people. And so that's the little voice that is always there chirping in my mind that I have to combat and I have to fight. And I hope that I sound intelligent. They didn't teach me anything in school that I wanted to learn, so therefore I didn't learn anything. Everything I learned after Yeah, I did learn how to read, but I could barely read when I got out of school. So it wasn't until I got in Amway in the mid 70s, and they kept chirping on you that you should start reading books. And I formed a book reading habit at that time, and that's what started kicking holes in this dark room that I lived in, and started bringing in light. So I'll turn it over to someone else for comments.
I was thinking about some things that were programmed through me from my mom. My mom did not like being in family pictures. And I found as I got older, I repeated that same cycle out of not having self-confidence and not feeling that I looked good in pictures and things. And I fought that for a long time. So I didn't take a lot of pictures with my kids when they were small. I was hid just like my mom. And I realized that just more recently have I gotten confident enough to do videos and actually I probably have more pictures of myself in the last 2 years than I have in 20 years of my life. And it's because of limiting beliefs. It was also, I had no confidence of feeling I was even attractive. So some of you may or may not, relate to that. And it goes back to things that were said that had an impact, that you didn't draw attention to yourself, or you don't need to be the center of the room, or things like that. So it's limiting beliefs that affect us as women. A lot of women have issues with that, and I didn't have confidence, and I still fight that one a lot. And just now going, oh, I do look good today, and being okay with saying, you have to feel good about saying that to yourself. And I honestly did not for many years, and it's affected me. I've struggled with weight for the last about 13, 14 years. I've had a severe weight problem. And so that further affected me because I equated from past programming that you're not attractive because you have extra weight. That has nothing to do with it. It's the person that you are. It's not even your external, appearance, but it's all that wiring that each of us have different things that were put into us that we have to fight off all the time. And it's when you realize, exactly what Christina said, that you can work, and we're all saying that really, is that then you can work to take that away and give yourself permission to not be held back by limiting beliefs.
Well, all I got to say, because what I was thinking when you first started talking was like, oh, I'm so glad she is moving past that, because I'm loving seeing the glamour beauty shots of you. And yes, you look fantastic today, and I'm proud of that work that you've done. But recognizing moreover, that who you are on the inside and who you share with the rest of the world is just as beautiful as what you look like on the outside, and even more. That's like powerful, in my opinion, Danielle.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else have an example? Jason, we haven't heard from you this morning. You want to jump out?
Yeah, good morning. Sorry for being late this morning. Had a really rough morning, but yeah, I just wanted to jump out and say it's really great to be here, and I agree with you guys, what you're saying. My example would be just by reading this book, a lot of things are coming kind of to the surface, right? So I think the other day, one that popped into my head because I started questioning like why I'm not taking certain actions, and I'm like, okay, why am I not taking certain actions? And then I'd wait for an answer, and I'd get some superficial thing, and I'd be like, well, why? And then I'd go deeper and deeper, and then finally I got deep into it to where it was just finally the phrase, it doesn't matter. And I was like, it took me aback for a second, and I had to put a stop to that. I was like, hold on a second, it does matter. And then I started going through all the reasons why it does matter, and starting to kind of reprogram or grow the roots that I think I heard Christina talking about earlier. And so something like that, I mean, it's such a small phrase, but it can be so self-defeating, and it's not something that's on the top of my head all the time, but it was buried way down deep below all these other reasonings, and it was just kind of a blanket reason, well, it doesn't matter, and I can only contribute that to being let down by people that I believed in and trusted in over the years, and in things that I've attempted or that fell apart for whatever reason. And I guess that reinforced that idea that it doesn't matter because it would all fall apart in the end, or it all do this or that, and it's like, no, wait, hold on, stop right there. That's not the truth. Um, so I worked on that a little bit. And another one is I realized that I must have been told a lot while I was a kid that I have to, I got to think about the consequences of my actions, And I'm like, that really, I know that's supposed to be helpful, but maybe we should be looking more at the rewards of our actions and not so much at the consequences of our actions, and then we can get all those obstacles out of our way and start looking at the rewards and what's going to develop in our favor from taking those actions. And so those are two powerful things that that kind of welled up inside me, and I kind of got a handle on over the past couple of days. So I just wanted to say that. Thanks for letting me talk.
Oh, wow, Jason, that was powerful. Excuse me. That what a great insight for you to share with us. Because I heard the same things when I was growing up. You should be thinking about that, or what were you thinking? Things like that. And I think a lot of times we overthink what is going to happen when we take some sort of an action, and we keep ourselves a lot of times from taking an action because we're overthinking and we're thinking about all these bad things that could possibly happen. And, of course, when we decided that we were going to become full-time RVers, there was all those thoughts going through my head of this and that and the other, bad could happen, this and that and the other. And I was like, wait a second, that's not why we're thinking about doing this in the first place. I need to be thinking about what's the great stuff that could happen and why we're doing this in the first place. Why do we have the desire to do it in the first place? So that's powerful. That's really awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. BG has a comment she's put on our event page. Before you read that, though, for those of you who are watching, what are some things in your life that, what are some thoughts in your head that have held you back from taking some sort of action or doing something or whatever? Anything that pops into your head. And I've got another one after I read BG's comment here. She says, Dan, you were talking about discounting. We grew up in poor Christian family where we were taught not to be proud. So we discounted our talents and gifts as for being humble. And so then you think, oh, it was nothing, thanks. And then you begin to believe it was nothing. Oh, that's true. I think that there's a lot of us that have had that same thing. And Dan, that was a great point that you made about that self-doubt, or discounting, excuse me. And I think that a lot of us have done that. It's a very detrimental thing that we do to ourselves, is discount our abilities. And I think, Christina, you talk about that a lot with your book that you've been reading. I'm sorry, I lost the title of it. Paid what you're worth. Is that it? How to get paid?
Yeah, pay me what I'm worth.
Pay me what I'm worth. Right. Maybe you can share a thought
on discounting. Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize. We were talking before the show about my mound of papers and stuff on my desk, and it just collapsed. Yeah, when it comes to discounting, we literally do that all of the time because we're blind to our own skills due to all of the negative wiring that we've acquired over the years from our family, from our environment, from the world, from what we see on the news, from our experiences as a child. All of that goes towards eroding what we know of ourselves when it comes to value and the skills that we have. We become blind to it, and therefore we don't show everybody else. So everybody around us is blind to our value, and so the source of the discounting kind of starts with you, in that you've, by reaction, learned to become blind to your own passions, learn to become blind to your own worth and everything. And so therefore you don't show it to other people. And that leaves you feeling sort of empty, your cup feeling really empty, because you feel like you're always giving. You're always giving. You never get to receive. Or you might even experience that you're sitting right here in this room, but most people don't seem to see you. They don't seem to feel your presence. They don't seem to appreciate your light. And that's all because you have actually blinded them and not sharing your light. It was something called, we learned it was called the Yahari window. Okay, I'll put it in. I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say, Samantha. I'll put it in the thing after the show. But if you read about the Yahari window, and I can put a link also to something, a recording that can go along with it if you'd like, that really speaks about that blindness and that erosion of worth over time. But yeah, it leads you to really discount yourself, and it's kind of crazy when you wake up to it. You're like, good Lord, all these years I've been in the dark.
Some things that come into my mind, some things we learned in psycho-cybernetics, and I mean, I love that book. I'm going through it again right now, or parts of it, portions of it. But what he's talking about in there is worry, and is talking about how we worry, and you begin with a suppose, and you say, well, suppose that this thing could go wrong. Suppose that this could happen, and then this would be really awful, and on and on and on. But then he also talks about how you can turn that around, and you can begin with a positive suppose. So you have a negative suppose and you have a positive suppose. And a positive suppose, Samantha, you was talking about how everybody thought you was nutsoid going out and living in an RV. But you turn that to a positive suppose, and it's, well, suppose that how great this is going to be. Suppose what a wonderful time we're going to have, and how freeing it is, and we can just pull up stakes, and if we don't like where we're at now, suppose that we could go down the road 100 miles and go live in a different city, or we could go live along the ocean, we could go live in the mountains, we could go do whatever we wanted to do whenever we wanted to do it. And it's there's so many negative examples, but so how can you tweak that from a negative example, the little things, the little cutesy-nootsies that our parents told us when we was little, like money don't grow on trees, shut the door, would think you're born in a barn, and all this kind of stuff. Well, how can we take that suppose from a negative and turn that to a positive, and that's where a dream is born, a vision is born. You've got to have a vision of where you're going, and so your eyes, where do your eyes go? Not necessarily your physical eyes, but where do your spiritual eyes look? Are you looking at the obstacle? Are you looking at the downer? Or are you looking at the good and the great, and how, suppose how great this is going to be. I mean, just imagine we can go do this, and we go do this, and wow, this is going to be fantastic, and turn that around to a positive suppose instead of this downer. Oh man, life's going to be a drag. It's going to suck, and taking command is taking command of your brain, of your mind, and turning that suppose from that negative. Be sure you wear clean underwear. You might be in an accident. Well, what if I wear dirty ones and I don't get in an accident? It might happen. I might go to the store, get my food, and come back home, and nothing happens. Nothing negative. So anyway.
You're hilarious, Dan. Oh my gosh. One of the things that this chapter brought up By the way, Samantha, I just want to say, if you think people look at you crazy, at least you have an RV. I have a gypsy wagon, so I still live without indoor plumbing, Dan, but it's by choice. And talk about putting a positive spin on it. The other day I saw um, a thing on Facebook come across where it said that most people use over 1,500 gallons of water a day. And of course, everyone's aware that, water is not something exceptionally plentiful right now in a lot of places. It's really plentiful, too plentiful in some places, but um, I have cold running water, but I don't have indoor toiletry or anything like that. So people think I'm even crazier than you, Samantha, is the point I'm trying to make. But I love my freedom, and I love the fact that I only use less than 4 gallons of water a day, even if I shampoo my hair. So that makes me feel really good about my footprint on the water situation. One of the things I loved about this chapter, and this is a really common comparison these days, is how our minds are like computers. Really, we are supercomputers. We're better. Our brains, the human body, is better than any supercomputer on the face of the earth. I mean, there's no computer that can calculate and do all the things that we do without even thinking about it. A computer takes somebody to turn it on. So a computer is really worthless if you can't even get the button on, but we're like these major things. And it might seem kind of silly, I don't know. Maybe not, because we are preaching that what you think turns into what you believe, So in the mornings, I don't have a Mac, so I'm always having to deal with virus scans and stuff like that. So in the mornings, when I first turn on my computer, I run the virus scans. And I used to just turn it on and then, walk away and do other things. Now, I turn it on and I sit here in front of it and I kind of soften my gaze so that I'm looking, but I'm not like focusing on, how all the things, it's checking this file, this file. I just intend that while that's doing that and I'm watching that is clearing negative programs and beliefs out of my system. And any blocks that's keeping me from moving forward in my life, my business, my goals, my dreams, my health, whatever. So I'm kind of like defragging myself every morning. So I don't know if you want to try that, but you can.
That's neat. I might try that sometime.
Yeah, I love that idea. Okay, I wanted to share a comment that Karen put on here of an example. She said, complimented one day with my dad standing next to me. He said, oh, okay, so I'm getting that you said that someone complimented you, Karen, and he said, we don't want her to get a swelled head. That one time has struck me 57 years or so, and pops up in the oddest context. And I can completely relate to that. I mean, there's just little things that our parents have said to us when we were younger that have stuck with us forever. I mean, silliness. I think in the next chapter it goes on to talk about something like that with learning a musical instrument. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the next one. But we're right at the top of the hour now, aren't we? Donna, let me just real quick before we wrap this up, I wanted to share, Donna put a comment on here as well. She said, we learn to light up and shine as we evaluate where we are now in time. This little light on mine will shine. That's awesome. Let's see, anybody else that have a comment on here? Christina, you're mentioning causing me to be blind brought a vivid picture to my eyes, scaling over anything that just might bring me a swelled head. Thank you. You may have blown that up huge. Awesome, Karen. Awesome. Okay, so anybody else have any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I think the only thing that I would like to add is as you go through this week and you're becoming more conscious and aware of where you are and what you're thinking and what you're feeling, go ahead and embrace all of that. And it's going to be like a tsunami at times. It's going to feel like just blowing you over at times. It's okay. Do the work, because on the other side of it is some crazy, awesome freedom. So do the work. Continue to do that deep dive. Embrace all that so that you can just pluck those roots and it doesn't come back again. I look forward to seeing you guys next No, week after next, right? I think
Yeah, I think
Samantha's. Okay, go ahead.
Jason, did you want to jump out?
I was just agreeing with Christina, and I think it is. We're going to be off next week, right, for the 4th.
Yep, yep. Okay, so yeah, let me just final out then. I just wanted to thank everybody for hanging out with us today. Thank you for sharing your examples and your thoughts on this, sharing your insights. Everybody had some great, great insights and some suggestions, which I think that we can all take to the bank, right? But anyway, so yeah, like Christina and Jason were talking about, we're gonna take next week off since it's the 4th of July. I just want to wish everybody a happy Independence Day, and wherever you are in the world, just have an awesome and amazing weekend. And but before you go, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the thumbs up on this video. Follow our page, join our community. If you'd like to keep up to date and stay in the loop and get email reminders, I'm going to post a link here where you can subscribe, get on our email list. You can get updates on that. So with that, have a great day, and we'll see you next on the, let me check the date real quick. We'll be back on the 11th, so we'll see you on July 11th. Bye, guys.